Hi, I'm Peter Knight. I want to talk this morning about downswing sequence and how you can develop power in your golf swing from a correct downswing sequence. We all sort of hear about the idea that you've got to accelerate the club through impact. Now, when you're moving correctly, the only thing that's accelerating at impact is the club head. Everything else is slowing down. When I say everything, I'm talking about the movement of the hips, the upper body, and the arms. And I know that sounds completely wrong. So let me explain it. What we're looking to do is utilize elastic energy, utilize transfer of momentum. I know it sort of sounds like, tricky words, but let's see how it actually works in the golf swing. And we've got to time this well because from the top of the backswing to impact takes somewhere between 1/4 of a second or just under for a faster swing and 1/3 of a second or a little over for a slower swing. So it's not a long period of time for all of this to come together and have the club moving correctly and striking the ball at impact in a way that's going to give us a nice long straight shot. So if we look at the backswing first and the order of movement in the backswing, when I set myself up and start to swing back, by the time I get to the top of the backswing, my upper body will have turned probably twice as much as what my lower body does. And what that does is it sets up a feel of a stretch or torque through the center of my body. Let's say that difference is, say, 40 degrees. If my hips have turned 40 and upper body's turned 80, what I want to do as I begin my downswing is actually move my lower body first. So now the difference between my upper body and my lower body, it started at 40 degrees here. If I move my lower body first, now the difference might be, say, 50 degrees. So I've actually increased that stretch through there. Quite a few years ago, Jim McLean, a highly renowned US coach, talked about that and called it the X factor. And the reason why he called it the X factor is because if we had a camera looking down at a dress, we'd see the two shafts that I'm holding are parallel. As I swing back, there's a difference between the amount I've turned with my upper body and the amount with my lower body. And so it looks like the letter X. So that's where he coined that term. So now from the top of my backswing, I want to keep my arms and hands quite passive because I want my lower body to lead the movement. Now my upper body's moving, my arms are following, and the club's following. Now pretty much everything's working or moving together at the same time, but they're moving at quite different rates. So here's where we start to explain one of the key concepts with this idea of how the body's working and how the body slows down, which sounds totally wrong. So at address, if we just look at my lower body, for example, at address my hips are square and stationary. When I get to the top of the swing, let's say at the top of the swing my hips are stationary, and then at the very finish of my swing, they're again stationary. So when I think about my hip movement from the top of my swing, where they're stationary, to finish of my swing, it means that they must have gained speed and then slowed down. My upper body's going to do the same. So from the top of my swing, let's say my upper body is stationary here and stationary at the finish of my swing, the end of my follow through, then from here, my upper body has gained speed and then it's slowed down at the finish. My arms are doing the same, gaining speed, slowing down, and my club head's going to do the same, gaining speed and then slowing down. And we need to get the order of those things correct. And this is the tricky part. When you swing the club down, your hips' maximum speed is going to occur about halfway through the downswing, or when my hips are back to being square here. So many players, in an attempt to try and accelerate the club through impact, keep the hips, or try and keep the hips moving, and everything else for that matter, for as long as they can to and even beyond impact. And of course that messes up the sequence. We find massive variations in where the club face is aimed, the path of the club to some extent, but often where the club meets the ground and which part of the club face meets the ball with all of this going on. We need to just smooth it out, retain the power, retain the speed of the club, but also do it with a lot more body control. So from the top of my swing, my hips maximum speed is occurring here. After that, still moving, but actually slowing down. My upper body's maximum speed occurs a little bit after that. My arm speed occurs after that as well. And my hand speed occurs, maximum speed occurs just prior to impact, and then the club head can swing through. So with a smooth looking golf swing, it looks fairly effortless. If the movement of my body and arms and club sort of tries to accelerate all the way through impact, it looks a bit rough, it's out of balance. So here's a couple of ways that we can look to start to try and sequence this movement. And rather than trying to get everything right at once, we're actually going to split it up a little bit. So when I swing from here, what I'm going to do initially is just work with my arms and the club. All I want my hands to be is pretty much passive hinges. Now if I hold my right hand here, so as the club swings down and through, my left arm is going to hit my right, and then the club sort of flips through. So my arm's slowing, in this case virtually stopping, and the club keeps going. So now if I'm making short practice swings, I can feel like my arms are going to slow down here, and then the club wants to just take off and fly around my hands. So there's not much work going on with my arms. So that gives me a sense of the sequence between my arms and the club. Now if I just put the club on the ground and just practice, keep my arms free and swing down to here, feel like my upper body stops around about when it's square or just past being square, and my arms don't want to stop, they want to keep on going. So I'm getting this feeling that my upper body is transferring energy or momentum to my arms, and then I can put that together with what I did with the club on my arms to begin with. Now I want to get my body and my lower body and my upper body sequenced. So now from here, my lower body's leading the movement, my upper body's catching up, but it doesn't catch up until about here. So this is after impact. So at impact, my hips have still turned more than my upper body. So all I want to do is practice that movement. Lower body's leading, upper body catches up here after impact. Lower body leads, upper body catches up. So I'm getting a feeling of being able to move my upper body and my lower body differently. So putting all those things together and just doing it very slowly, I've got lower body leading the movement of the downswing, followed by the upper body, followed by the arms. Now my lower body has begun to slow, my upper body's begun to slow, my arms have begun to slow, and then the club head takes off. Everything keeps moving through to the finish, but there's no work in getting the club through to the finish of the swing. If you separate those things out and practice those movements individually, you'll find that you will start to get a feel for it. And then starting to put it all together with pace, short clubs to start with, right through to your driver, and you'll find that you'll be able to develop a lot more speed and a lot more power in your shots.